Shri Krishna Namaha. Shri Gopi Janavallabhaya Swaha Idam Sotana Naivedyam Shri Krishnaya Vedayami. वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्.
ॐ पृथिवी शान्तिरन्तरिक्षगं शान्तिर्द्यौ शान्तिर्दिशः शान्तिरवान्तर दिशा शान्तिरग्निः शान्तिर्वायुः शान्तिरादित्यः शान्तिश्चन्द्रमा शान्तिर्नक्षत्राणि शान्तिरापः शान्तिरोषधयः शान्तिर्वनस्पतयः शान्तिर्गौ शान्तिरजा शान्तिरश्वः शान्तिः पुरुषः शान्तिर्ब्रह्म शान्तिर्ब्राह्मणः शान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः शान्तिर्मे अस्तु शान्तिः. May there be peace on earth and in the sky. May there be peace in the water and in all directions. May there be peace in the plants, in the trees, and in animals. May there be peace in the hearts of all beings. May there be peace in everyone and in everything. Sarvetra sukhinas santu, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukkha bhag bhavet, sarvastaratu durgani, sarvo bhadrani pashyatu, sarvas sadbuddhimapnotu, sarvas sarvatra nandatu. May all be happy and healthy. May all see what is good, and may no one experience misery. May all overcome their obstacles and acquire good tendencies. May people everywhere find joy and fulfillment. Let us now spend some time touching the center of peace and joy in our hearts. A good way to begin the practice is to withdraw the scattered energies of the mind and bring them to rest on one point. That point can be our own breathing. Let us therefore practice breathing with awareness. As we breathe in, let us visualize that our body and mind are being filled with love, strength, and compassion. And as we breathe out, let us release all the stress, anxiety, and exhaustion in the body and mind. Let us practice this way for a while. Let us now turn our attention to the region of our heart. Although God is present everywhere and in everyone, the divine presence can be felt most clearly in our own hearts. We can meditate in any way we have been taught. To remain focused, we can take the help of a short mental prayer or a mantra or a divine name. Let us now spend some time dwelling on the presence of God in our hearts. Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmageti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Tenamam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. Welcome everyone. After a long time, we come together. It's almost 18 months, a year and a half. So I greatly appreciate all of you coming, and I greatly appreciate a much larger number who is also watching and participating in this program online. I was just thinking to myself, when we stopped because of the pandemic, I think it was 15th of March of 2020. And then a couple of weeks later, we started our streaming of programs. And the very first time I had to speak with just a camera in front of me, it was very difficult. I'd never done that in life before. And then over time, I got used to it. And now I've gotten so used to just speaking to the camera that I have to now relearn. I've said, oh my God, so many people will be sitting in front of me. So in some sense, I think that is what we all do most of the time unconsciously, that the changes that occur in our life, some of these are conscious, voluntary changes, but a lot of changes occur in our life which are not within our control. And we have to learn and relearn the kind of things that we have been used to. We have to learn to do things differently. And sometimes we might have to go back to doing things how we were doing before. So that's the kind of a process all of us have learning and relearning in the last several months. Not only at the Vedanta Center, but even in the family setting and in the workplace. Everywhere, it's a little bit different, or sometimes drastically different from how we were doing things before. There is something to be said about coming together and praying and worshipping and meditating together, although increasingly we have become used to the idea of doing things virtually. There is some kind of a sense of togetherness even when we do it virtually. But again, it's kind of a learning and relearning process. And so as we have been doing for many years now, we resume our programs after the recess with the Krishna festival. Although Krishna's birthday occurred almost, I think, at least a fortnight ago. So we are celebrating it today. So one of the things that often comes to my mind when we look at the life of Krishna, that there are at least 3 different phases to his life. One is, of course, the child Krishna, whom we see on the altar here. And there are so many stories and songs related to the child Krishna. And those of us who have studied his Balya Leela, as it is called, the incidents that occurred in his childhood, they're very delightful. He's a very loving, charming figure of the child Krishna. And in his life we see how, even as a little baby, how he was attacked by several demons, or Rakshasas as they were called, who were sent by his uncle, maternal uncle, who just wanted to destroy him because there was this prediction that this Kamsa, his mama, his end would come at Krishna's hand, and so he wanted to destroy him. And so we have these incidents, amazing children, the little kid, little child Krishna, and this huge, if you have seen some of the comics or the depictions of it in movies, these very ferocious demons coming, and how this little child just effortlessly is able to vanquish them. Now, of course, a lot of this might seem very mythological, very supernatural, but the idea is that where there is goodness, purity, that can conquer any forces of evil, any forces of wickedness, no matter how big they might appear outwardly. But the power of purity is immense, is unparalleled. Then we see the other aspect of Krishna, Krishna playing with the milkmaids and the gopis, Krishna and Radha. It's another charming aspect of his life. When we see those delightful incidents that occur in Vrindavan and Gokul, when these milkmaids and the shepherd boys who were there, one of the things that often gets described in Krishna literature is about Krishna's Leela with the gopis. And the gopis are seen here as the yearning heart of the devotee. How the love for God can effortlessly break all of our attachment to perishable worldly things and draw us, just that attraction towards the divine can take us. And that gets depicted as the love between Krishna and the gopis, and it's embodied specifically in the form of Radha. And then there is the third aspect of Krishna, which is what we study sometimes, and especially gets emphasized in the study of the Gita. So Krishna on the battlefield, Krishna the teacher. Krishna is one of the greatest teachers and interpreters of Vedanta. Now, all of these three distinct aspects of Krishna's life, each of them looks very distinct, very different, and yet it is the same personality, the same person. And so sometimes those who have studied Krishna's life and meditated on him have often seen what is the connecting link. It's just like we look at our own lives. When we were little children, then our time as teenagers, and then in our youth, and depending on what age group we belong to, then in the middle age and so on. So we can look at these distinct phases in our own life. Maybe perhaps we were in a different city or doing a different work and so on. And yet, in spite of all these changes that occur in our life, the different phases of our life, we still know that I am still the same person. There is something of me that continues through these apparently external changes that occur. So the question that can come is, what is the connecting link between this little child Krishna, this Krishna who played with the gopis, and the Krishna who teaches Vedanta on the battlefield of Kurukshetra? And one of the important characteristics of Krishna that shows itself through all of these different aspects is that of detachment. You see that, of course, in the case of the little child Krishna, with him all vanquishing all these asuras and rakshasas, you see that his own Leela as a little child, you can see here he's holding it. He's known for stealing butter. He'll go into the houses of neighbors, and he loved butter. And I think they were not worried about cholesterol and things like that in those days. So, but on one hand, he's all these fending off all these attacks by the asuras, and the second time, his childhood, just like a little, a loving child, that is not changed at all. So he remains completely detached from these other attacks that came. Then in Krishna, who plays with the gopis and sings and dances with them, we see in his life that at one stage when he leaves for Mathura, he leaves all this, his friends, the milkmaids and the others, he never again returns to that place. Now, sometimes people might say, oh, that's so heartless. These people who loved you so much and you never again go back. And of course, those days, there were no letters or emails to be sent either. But we see that he never goes back. So what we learn from this, and of course, let me just say something more about the third part. That is, we have discussed often while talking about the Gita, is Krishna is there right in the battlefield where this war is going on and killing and everything is going on, but he has chosen not to fight in the war. So he's right there in the midst of the battlefield, guiding, advising, watching everything, and yet remaining unaffected by it. So this detachment as a spiritual practice is something that we can learn through Krishna's life, not only from the Gita, but also through every phase of his life. And what it means is this, that the ability to learn from what happens in our life and the ability to just let go and move on. And both of these things are very important. Things happen in everyone's life. There are wonderful things and there are terrible things. There are pleasant things and there are unpleasant things. We have very little control over what happens in our lives. We like to think that we have a lot of control, but if you look at it in a detached way, we see that yes, we have limited amount of control, but most of the things that occur in our lives, we really have no control. Well, the pandemic is one clear example that we have already still going through. When this virus comes and how many variants are created, we don't have much control. What we can do is we can put a mask. That's what we can do, but we can't choose to say, oh, the pandemic should come or not come. So, and that's kind of a very extreme example. But even other things that happen in our life, there are so many factors at play, there are so many forces that are in operation that we don't have. Now, where we do have freedom and control is deciding that whatever happens in my life, am I learning something from it? So one way of looking at life is the countless opportunities life gives us to learn. Sri Ramakrishna's one saying that, in fact, we have it on the board in the room outside, that as long as I live, so long do I learn. And something that we have repeated often here, that our learning doesn't stop when we graduate from our schools. That something of the attitude of a student should remain with us all through life. If that remains with us, then we will see that life offers us countless opportunities to learn at every step. And oftentimes, we learn more through the terrible things. Oftentimes, we learn more through the unpleasant experiences in life. Now, there's no reason why it should be that way, but that's just how things are. That painful as things can be sometimes in life, suffering that can be excruciating oftentimes, but when we look back at such periods in our life, we will see that we grew more, we became more mature, it brought out a greater inner strength from within us. So learning is first thing. The kind of question we all can ask ourselves. Everything that is happening in my life, big and small, am I learning something? One of the helpful practices before we go to bed every night would be to ask ourselves, have I learned anything new today? And if we have learned something new, it doesn't have to be some great discovery. Even if it's a tiny little thing, but something that I didn't know and now I know, then we can say that that day is not wasted. But if the whole day has passed and I have not learned anything at all, then we can say, well, I wasn't paying enough attention. So that's the first thing, learning. But the second thing also is important. Sometimes we might experience things, even learn from them, but then we are not able to let go of them. We just carry that baggage with us all through. Now that is a big burden. And so detachment really means these two things. Everything that is happening in my life, learn from it, move on, leave behind. We will see that although The state of spiritual enlightenment is considered a state which is just free from suffering and filled with bliss and filled with joy. And that's true, and that will happen in the lives of all of us. But even before we have reached that state, it is still possible, even now in our present stage, to experience a measure of freedom, a measure of joy, if we are able to leave behind the unnecessary baggage from our life. And this is both that which is visible and invisible. As I sometimes say, if you go to your basement or your garage and you find there are lots of things there, it might not be a bad idea. In fact, I did a little bit of that during these past few months when we were closed, that there are so many things that have gotten accumulated, and we can just look at the things and say, do I really need all this? Or is just occupying space? Well, not that everything there might be useless. Some things might be useful. But if I haven't even used them for the last 5 years, or if I didn't even know that they were there, then either I needed to just throw them, or if they are usable things, give it to someone else. Give it to Salvation Army or some place where others could use them. Many of us find it difficult to do that kind of a house cleaning, even with regard to material objects. How much more difficult it is then to do that kind of house cleaning about the ideas and thoughts and grudges and these painful memories and anger and hatred that we carry. That junk needs to be removed from our hearts as well. So that is detachment. That learn, and then here is one interesting thing. If we have not learned something from it, we won't be able to leave it back. So these two things are connected. Sometimes we might think some of the baggage that we carry from our past, some of us would love to leave it behind and just say, move on. It's easy for other people to say, move on. The reason we are not able to move on, because that baggage that we carry had a place in my life, was supposed to teach me something, and I haven't yet been able to figure out what lesson it had for me. So sometimes, and it needs a little bit of training of the mind and strength of the mind to kind of, especially some of these painful incidents or painful experiences, to kind of re-encounter them in our heart. Look at them, not run away from them, not pretend as if they don't exist. Face them, as Swami Vivekananda's that well-known incident, most of you are familiar about how he was being chased by those wild monkeys in Benares. And he said the only way he could get rid of them was to stop, look at them in the eye. And then he said, then they went away. So he used the phrase, face the brute. So there are lots of brutes in our own heart. So if we can face them and say, yes, and now almost all of these things are something that had happened in the past. So look at them and say, this is a thing that has happened. It can't be undone because it's already happened. But I can at least look back and say, what was it supposed to teach me? If we believe that everything that happens in our life, first of all, everything happens through God's will, and if God loves us, so if God loves us and God willed something to be happened in a particular way, then God wanted to teach me something. God wanted me to learn from it, to grow from it, to become strong with it. So all that I need to do is to look at these things and say, what have I learned? And once I'm able to learn, I said, yes, this is something I have learned. Now, what is the meaning of learning? It simply means this. If incident or something similar were to occur in my life in future, I would not react to it in the way I did in the past. If my wrong way of dealing with something has brought me suffering, and if I have learned my lesson, then when something similar happens in the future, if I react in the same way, history is going to repeat itself. That's why they say history repeats itself, because we don't learn from history. But if we learn from history, then we create history. We do something new. We do something different. And so that is what learning does. And once I'm able to learn from it, I'm able to let go of it. I'm able to leave it behind. So as we think about Krishna's life, at least one major lesson that we all can focus on, and then which will help us look at our own lives, is how much have I learned from my own life, and how much have I been able to let go of the unnecessary baggage. Not everything has to be let go. There are things which are important. There are things which must remain with us all through our life, things that are sacred, things that are important. But there is a lot that is just useless. And so on this day, as we celebrate Krishna's birth and contemplate on his life and the different facets of his life, this is one thing we all will benefit from, to seeing how much we learned and how much we are able to let go. Because that is the way to free ourselves. That is the way to become happy. And these little freedoms, little bits of joys that we experience in life will strengthen our spiritual practice. Yes, that ultimate freedom, that ultimate joy will come. But before that ultimate freedom and ultimate joy comes, let us get something which is immediately within our reach. These little joys, this little freedom. Because this freedom then will help improve the quality of my prayer, the quality of my meditation. Because oftentimes we speak about distractions in meditation. I'm not able to meditate because my mind gets distracted. What is it that is distracting me? It's just these things that I have not been able to let go, things that I have not learned my lesson from. This is what distraction is. So the more I try to let go of these things, my mind becomes clearer, mind becomes freer, and then the quality of my meditation improves. And if I'm able to pray well, meditate well, then that ultimate freedom, that ultimate joy, that ultimate perfection, that ultimate fulfillment that we all seek consciously or unconsciously will come to us. So that is my prayer on this day, that we all have come together after such a long time, is that may through Sri Krishna's grace, that kind of learning on a daily basis, that kind of detachment may come and fill our lives with freedom, joy, and fulfillment. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om. So now we will have Arati. After Arati, we will do Sarvamangala. And after that, just as you are now so sitting here in such an orderly way, I request you to keep sitting. And then as we will all not get up to go out the way we used to do in those ancient times. So please remain seated. We will go row by row as you are directed by our friends and volunteers here. And then you can have prasad outside. A few things about going forward, what we will do. As you can see that you don't have your the prayer books and the song books in front of you. And it's not that they went suddenly missing in the last 18 months. So they have been removed intentionally. So until such time as things become even better than they are now, so we will not have congregational singing. So we will, so as I do the prayer here or the singing, I invite all of you to do it mentally or reflect on it. So we will try to do things going forward as safely as possible, because public health and the health of our community members is most important. I want everyone to be able to come, feel safe, so that they can come and sit and pray without having to worry about, because we read all these infections and stuff like that. So in order to keep this space safe and happy and healthy for everyone, I request your cooperation. So on Sundays, so here is one other one, kind of dilemma was there. So when we started this Sunday online programs, we have been doing now the reflections on the Gita. So when we started it, there was no way of knowing how long this was going to continue. I hadn't imagined. I think none of us knew that the center will remain closed for 18 months. So we have now been taking these different themes from different chapters of the Gita, and have come up to, I think, 14th chapter. But now we have kind of come back to our usual schedule. One option was to do a different topic every Sunday, as we did before. The other option was kind of not leave it halfway. It's more than halfway, really. So the plan going forward is we will continue with the Gita reflection on Sundays until we cover the remaining 4 chapters. And after that, we will resume our earlier way of doing the Sunday reflections. On Wednesdays, we will not have our study group meetings will resume next week. That is on 22nd of September. And the text that we will be studying is Viveka Chudamani. So the translations of that, some of you might already have some old translations. They are often called Crest Jewel of Discrimination. It's a great book by Shankaracharya in 8th century. A new translation I had, and I used this opportunity in the last, when we were closed, but I began working on it almost 3.5 years ago, a fresh translation of that same text in a book called Looking Deeply. So we will use that book as our textbook for the Wednesday study group meeting. That will begin on 22nd. Now, copies of that book are available in the bookstore, but can also be ordered online from Amazon if you prefer getting things from Amazon. So about some changes, at least temporarily going forward. We will not have tea and coffee. We will not have the informal discussions we used to have in the room outside. The whole idea is to prevent large gatherings as much as possible. So we are safer outdoors. So we will not have tea, coffee. We will not have discussion, but they will resume. Encourage all your friends who have not been vaccinated yet to vaccinate themselves and to put masks. So things will be, actually we are far much better compared to the rest of the country. In New England, we have been good and disciplined. So it's good to kind of pat ourselves on the back. So that's what we'll do going forward. And then next month, from the first Saturday, that is October 2nd, we will have our weekly meditation. To begin with, we'll just have once a week, only on Saturdays from 6 to 7. Again, when things improve, we will go back to the original schedule of having it twice a week. So it's a very gradual reopening of the center, keeping in mind the health of everyone. So that's the plan going forward. one other thing you could do is, since we have the altar here, so before, as I said, before going out, please get up only when you are asked to do so. If you, in the meantime, would like to come and offer pranam at the altar, you can feel free to come and do the pranam here. Then go back to your seat and sit down, and then you can move out. So we have prasad packets for everyone outside, and we have plenty of them. So even if you go a little late, you will get your packet. So no need to rush outside. I think that's about it. So once again, very happy that we are all together again. And through the grace of Sri Ramakrishna, Holy Mother, Swami Vivekananda, and the grace of all the great ones, we hope and pray that things will continue to improve, that we will no longer have to wear these masks. But until then, until such time occurs, it's good to be safe ourselves, but also to keep people around us safe as well. So it's a both. It's service to ourselves and service to community as well. So now we will have the Arati followed by Sarvamangala, and then you remain seated, and then we'll follow. All right? Okay.
Krishna Bhagavan